Hey guys, what's going on? It's Broken Nose Gaming here. Got another video for you this week, trying to make up for the lack of videos previously. Today, we're going to be talking about probably one of my least favorite tanks in World of Tanks, Blitz. It's kind of a weird tank, it's Halloween themed, and it's a mishmash of parts. The tank that we'll be talking about today is the Tier 7 Heavy from Germany, the Tankenstein. Or, if you prefer, Young Frankenstein, the Tankenstein. This tank truly is a mishmash of parts. You have the hull of a Tiger Porsche. Your turret is from a KV-4. I believe it's the upgraded turret. And your main gun can be one of two things. You can either have a 105mm from the US Tier 7 Heavy, the T-29, or you can have the main gun from a Tier 6 Soviet tank destroyer, the Su-100Y. The problem I have with this tank is it doesn't bring the best of any world to the table. You have to make severe sacrifices in order to have any of these options on the tank. A lot of people like to use the 130mm on the Tankenstein. The problem is you have almost no gun depression. You have not the best pen at Tier 7. You have pretty good alpha, but you have fairly poor aim time, fairly poor dispersion, just bad DPM, and your reload is abysmal. Now, obviously, this is done to balance the tank because you're putting the Su-100Y's gun on a rotating turret, but I mean, to lose so much just to be able to hit people for 460 or 530 alpha, I don't know. The other problem I have with using the 130mm is because this is a mishmash of parts, you literally just get the gun mantlet and everything from the Su-100Y. The gun mantlet is not very big when it comes to the 130mm, so people can kind of pen the front face of that KV-4 turret fairly easily if you do that. Now, the other option, and this is the option that I use, is the 105mm that the T-29 has. Quicker reload, got better DPM, got better accuracy. The pen's about the same. Your alpha is obviously going to be less. You have better gun depression. It also has the gun mantlet from the T-29 slapped on the front of the gun and on the front of the turret. So not only do you have the fairly decent turret of a KV-4, but you now have this giant gun shield mantlet from the T-29 on there. The problem is, if we take a look at the T-29 and all of its stats compared to the Tankenstein, especially when it comes to its main gun, since they share the same main gun, you'll notice some pretty stark differences when it comes to the T-29 versus the Tankenstein. If we take a look at the 105, one of the big differences between the two is the reload time. On the T-29, it's almost 9 seconds. Meanwhile, on the Tankenstein, it's almost 11 seconds. So that's like almost a 2-second difference. And that puts the DPM of the T-29 in the 2000 territory, which is much better than what you get with the Tankenstein. Everything else is fairly similar, but you actually get better depression as well when it comes to using the T-29's 105. Now, armor-wise, the T-29 might not be like the best, but it's still no slouch. And I would still say the T-29 is probably one of the better Tier 7 heavies in the game. I would probably want to play the T-29 more than I'd want to play the Tankenstein. The Tankenstein isn't spectacular at any one thing. Like, yes, you have thick armor compared to other tanks at 200mm. Problem is it's mostly flat, and there are still easily pennable spots. You're also very slow. If we look at the mobility of this thing, 12 horsepower per ton, your average speed is going to be like 24 kilometers per hour. Your hull turn rate is abysmal at 24 degrees per second. What about your turret turn rate? It's better at 32, but that's still not very fast. If you compare it to like the T-29, it's going to be way better on the T-29. Look at that hull turn rate. Almost 40 degrees per second. So overall, just the T-29 is a more mobile platform. The only other kind of special feature that the Tankenstein has is it has a mechanic called the Phantom Crew, where essentially you don't have a crew. In terms of aesthetics, though, I will say it's pretty cool. It's got that patchwork look that like the actual Frankenstein would have. It used to have flame exhaust coming out the back. It no longer has that. They broke that. You kind of have like this skull and crossbones on the back of the turret, and you got a pumpkin on the side of the hull. So it looks cool, but that's about it. Personally, I was pretty let down by this tank. I was definitely fooled into thinking that this was going to be a really cool tank by having this really cool platform that you can use the SU-100Y's gun on. Which, by the way, if we look at the SU-100Y and we take a look at its main gun, the reload time is at least a second less than it is on the Tankenstein. And it has better accuracy, and it has better DPM. I don't see the point in using the 130 on the Tankenstein. I have spent some time on this tank. I have tried to make it work. I unfortunately don't really play it outside of its birthdays, but you can see I have like 300,000 XP ground on this tank. Every once in a while, I do have an okay game with it. So I will fire up a replay and we can kind of go over this tank. So here we are a top tier tank. This is a tier 7 match, so at least I don't have to worry about tier 8s destroying me. But as you can see, off we go, and we're cruising along at about almost 30 kilometers per hour. On flat ground. This is going to be a short match too. This is also a Burning Games match. But as you can see, if you hit the lower plate of the T-29 face on, the T-29's main gun is pretty useful. But this guy unfortunately decides to, I think, try to side scrape. This is really what I did this whole match with my Tankenstein. I had a few tanks park on this alleyway. I just kept tracking them. I'm going to try and wiggle a bit for that Hellcat because I'm not quite sure if the Hellcat knows even where to pen me. And I'm just going to kind of keep myself bouncing and wiggling around while I hold this alleyway. This T-29 is trying his hardest to side scrape. Unfortunately, it does not work that well for him. And also, unfortunately, my partner kind of goes a little too far and overextends himself. Now, this Juto does bounce me, I think, once. Then he puts this round into me. Look at that. A tier 6 Polish heavy was able to penetrate my hull. So, like, it's not that great. This SU-122-44 is a little bit too optimistic. He came around the corner a little too quick. He manages to hide himself. That 40 TP is still trying to unload on me. Look at that. My shell bounces him. So this guy knows what he's doing because he is managing to put shells into my hull. I wanted to get rid of the SU-122-44 because that's a fairly high alpha tank. So now I have a KB2. KB2 also gets a little too excited. I take the Hellcat out. I figure the Gravedigger can probably take care of the KB2, but he goes and hides, and I'm just going to kind of face off with this 40 TP since he knows where to pen me. Now I'm about half dead at this point, and I've also managed to rack up about 3 kills and 3,000 damage almost. That Juto's coming back. So I will say the one thing that you shouldn't do when you come around a corner is go full side on like these guys are doing. Like, it's just not the way to do it. They are presenting quite a bit of free real estate for me to punch into. That SU-122-44 does manage to hit me. Unfortunately, I hit his track, and I gotta wait a whole 11 seconds. I am gonna try side scraping now at this point because I've gotten to the point where I'm just not doing too well. But I'm still alive, and I've managed to hit almost 4,000 damage and rack up 4 kills. But yeah, this was a quick match, and I didn't do a whole lot because the Tankenstein is not mobile. So I don't even manage to make it to the front line there to finish the 40 TP that was schooling me and penning my weak points when I was facing him front on. But I do manage to do okay in this match. I do over 4,000 damage. I block over 1,200 damage. I take out 4 tanks and I help destroy 5 more. I take home a decent amount of credits. XP doesn't really matter to me. And if we look at the list here, I am on the top, but I don't have the most XP. That actually goes to the Gravedigger, who was more up in your face, more mobile, and was doing, I think, a better job of taking out other enemy tanks than I was. But yeah, that is the Tankenstein. As I said, I'm not a big fan of this tank. I don't recommend this tank. If you ever see it for sale, I wouldn't waste my gold on it. If you get it in a certificate, well, I'm sorry. If they auction this tank off in the holiday auction, I still wouldn't recommend it. If you want to use the 130, get the SU-100Y. If you want to use the 105 in Tier 7, get the T-29. There's nothing that the Tankenstein does better than either of these tanks do, in my opinion. This tank needs some love, in my opinion, and some buffs or something to make it at least a little bit more enjoyable. Because honestly, it just doesn't feel fun to me. If you have the Tankenstein and you like it, drop some comments and let me know. Maybe I'm just not good at the tank. Anyways, that will be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something today. And until I catch you in the next video, take it easy. Bye-bye.